My daughter-in-law locked me inside my own house for 3 days and went on vacation, without leaving me food, without leaving me water, without even telling the neighbors I was alone. Yeah, let that sink in. I'm 72 years old, and the woman my son married looked me in the eye, smiled sweet as pecan pie, and said, "Mom, we'll be back Sunday. Don't worry about a thing." Then she turned the key from the outside. If you think that sounds unbelievable, honey, I wish it was. But before I tell you how I survived those 3 days, and how I made sure she never touched my things again, you need to hear the whole story. And if you believe elders deserve respect, go ahead and subscribe to this channel right now, because what happened to me, it happens more than folks admit. Now let me take you back. My name is Martha Whitaker. I've lived in this same small Ohio town for 43 years. I raised my son Daniel in that house. I buried my husband from that house. Every wall carries a memory. Every floorboard knows my footsteps. So when my daughter-in-law Vanessa started calling it our house, I smiled politely. Ah, I should have known. You see, Vanessa always had that tone. Sweet on the surface, sharp underneath. Mom, you really should let me handle your medications. Mom, you're getting forgetful. Mom, why don't you rest while I organize? Organize. That was her favorite word. First, she rearranged my kitchen cabinets. Then she started opening my mail by accident. Then she insisted on holding on to the spare keys for emergencies. I didn't fight it. I didn't want to cause tension between her and Daniel. A mother protects her son, even from uncomfortable truths. But 3 weeks ago, something shifted. Daniel came home from work looking exhausted. Vanessa was already dressed in resort wear, flowy dress, big sunglasses perched on her head like she was starring in some beach commercial. "Mom," she said, overly cheerful, "we booked a last-minute vacation to Miami. Daniel needs the break." I smiled. "That sounds lovely." Then she added, "And it's probably best if you stay here instead of going to Carol's like usual. You know how you get confused in unfamiliar places." Confused? I have managed my own finances for decades. I still drive. I still volunteer at the church pantry. But she said it so smoothly, like it was a fact. Daniel didn't look at me when she said it. That was my first warning. The morning they left, I noticed something strange. My phone charger was missing. The landline cord in the kitchen had been unplugged. I thought maybe it was coincidence. Then I heard the click. The unmistakable sound of the deadbolt turning from the outside. I walked to the door and tried the handle. Locked. I told myself maybe she double-locked it by mistake. Maybe Daniel would realize and come back. Hours passed. I went to the fridge. Nearly empty. A half carton of milk. Expired yogurt. Some wilted lettuce. No breath. No meaus. My heart started beating hard, not with fear, but with realization. She planned this. That evening I tried the back door. Also locked from outside with the security bar engaged. Windows. Sealed shut. I sat down at my kitchen table and whispered, No, she wouldn't. But yes, she did. The first night, I rationed what little I had. Drank water from the tap. Ate dry cereal I found in the pantry. By the second day, dizziness set in. My hands trembled. I kept thinking about Daniel. Did he know? Or did she tell him I was staying with a friend? Ah, that's the kind of lie she'd tell. On the third day, I collapsed trying to reach the hallway closet. That's when I remembered something. The Henderson's boy. Next door. Ethan. 17 years old. Always mowing lawns, always polite. He used to help me carry groceries. And I remembered something else. Vanessa never noticed the small bathroom window near the laundry room didn't fully latch. She thought it was sealed like the rest. She underestimated me. And that was her biggest mistake. Because what happened next? Oh honey, that's when I stopped being the quiet, shrinking mother-in-law. And that's when I started planning my revenge. But I'll tell you exactly how I got out. By the third day, my body felt like it didn't belong to me. My legs were weak. My mouth was dry. My head pounded like someone was knocking from the inside. I hadn't eaten anything real in nearly 72 hours. Just tap water and a handful of stale cereal crumbs I found shoved behind a flour canister. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't neglect. This was intentional. Vanessa didn't forget to leave food. She didn't accidentally unplug the landline. She didn't mistakenly take my charger. She prepared. But she made one mistake. She assumed I was helpless. Now listen to me carefully, because this is where everything changed. I was lying on the hallway floor when I remembered that small bathroom window near the laundry room. Years ago, my late husband had mentioned it didn't seal tightly. I had meant to fix it. Never did. Vanessa never noticed. Because she never truly looked at this house. It wasn't hers. It was a stage she decorated. I dragged myself up using the wall. Every movement felt heavy, like walking through water. I shuffled toward the laundry room, holding my breath so I wouldn't pass out. When I reached the bathroom, I locked the door behind me out of instinct. Funny how dignity sticks with you even when survival kicks in. I stepped onto the edge of the tub and pushed at the window. At first it didn't budge. I whispered, "Lord, please," and pushed harder. It lifted half an inch. Cold March air rushed in like freedom. The opening was small. Smaller than I remembered. But desperation makes you creative. I grabbed a metal hanger from the laundry basket and started tapping against the glass. Not loud enough to shatter it, just enough to make noise. Top, top, top. Nothing. Then I started banging harder. Clang, clang, clang. My arms shook, but I didn't stop. Finally, I heard a voice outside. "Mrs. Whitaker?" It was Ethan. I nearly cried. "Ethan." My voice cracked like old wood. "Honey, I need help." His footsteps rushed closer. "Are you okay?" "No," I said, and I didn't sugarcoat it. "I'm locked inside." Silence. "What do you mean locked?" I said, forcing my voice steady. "My daughter-in-law locked the doors from the outside." I heard him inhale sharply. "Stay there," he said. "I'm calling my dad." Within minutes, Mr. Henderson was in the backyard. He tried the doors himself. Locked tight. Deadbolt from outside. Security bar engaged. He looked up at the window and saw my face. And I saw something shift in his expression. Concern turned to anger. He called 911. When the police arrived, they had to force the back door open. The sound of it splintering was something I will never forget. It wasn't just wood breaking. It was illusion. The officers helped me outside. I remember the sunlight feeling too bright, too big. The world spinning as they sat me down on the porch. One of the officers asked gently, "Ma'am, who locked you in?" I swallowed. "My daughter-in-law." Saying it out loud made it real. Paramedics checked me over. Severe dehydration. Low blood sugar. They wanted to take me to the hospital, and this time, I didn't argue. But before the ambulance doors closed, I looked at Mr. Henderson. "Thank you," I said. He shook his head. "You did the right thing calling out." "No. I did the right thing fighting." At the hospital, while fluids dripped into my veins, I thought about Vanessa lying on some beach in Miami, sipping cocktails, probably telling Daniel I was resting peacefully at a friend's house. She didn't expect me to survive that quietly. She didn't expect witnesses. She didn't expect police reports. And she definitely didn't expect me to press charges. Because while I lay there staring at the sterile white ceiling, I made a decision. I was done protecting her reputation. Done protecting my son from discomfort. Done shrinking. When the officer came to take my statement, I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said clearly. "I want this documented." He asked, "Do you believe this was intentional?" I met his eyes. Yes. For the first time in years, my voice didn't tremble. And when Daniel's phone finally rang from the police station instead of some sunny beach bar, that's when her vacation ended. But honey, you have no idea what happened when she walked back into that house and realized the locks had been broken from the outside. And trust me, she wasn't ready for what I had waiting. Vanessa thought she was coming home to a quiet house. She thought she was walking back into control. She had no idea. Daniel told me later what happened at the airport. They had just landed in Miami when his phone started blowing up. Missed calls from neighbors. A voicemail from the police department. Another from a paramedic. Vanessa tried to laugh it off. "Oh my God, your mom probably tripped over something and overreacted." But when Daniel heard the words forced entry An elder endangerment investigation. His face changed. He didn't tell her everything. Not on the plane ride back. He just sat there. Quiet. And Vanessa? She kept scrolling through beach photos like nothing had happened. That's the kind of person she is. Smile for the camera while the house burns down behind you. By the time they pulled into the driveway, the back door had been temporarily secured by police. There was yellow tape still stuck to the porch railing. Vanessa froze. "What is that?" she whispered. Daniel didn't answer. He unlocked the door with the spare key the officers had left him. The hinges creaked. Broken wood splintered at the frame where they'd forced it open. And for the first time, Vanessa looked unsure. The kitchen looked the same. The couch. The hallway. But something had shifted. Control had left the room. I wasn't there when she stepped inside. I was still at the hospital. But Mr. Henderson told me later. She walked straight to the refrigerator. Opened it. Closed it. Like she was checking if her lie was still intact. Then she said too quickly, "Your mom must have panicked. You know how she gets." Ah. That's when Daniel finally spoke. "She was dehydrated, Vanessa." Silence. They had to break the door down. More silence. "She told them you locked her in." Vanessa laughed. Actually laughed. "That's insane. Why would I do that?" Daniel asked one simple question. Why was the landline unplugged? She blinked. Why was her charger gone? Her mouth opened then closed. Why was there no food in the house? That's when she changed tactics. Tears. Sudden. Dramatic. Perfectly timed. I can't believe she would accuse me of something like this. After everything I've done for her. Done for me? Like opening my mail? Moving my medication? Telling neighbors I was forgetful? Daniel didn't shout. He didn't slam anything. He just said, "We need to go to the hospital." And that, right there, is when she realized this wasn't going away quietly. When they walked into my hospital room, I was sitting upright, color slowly returning to my face thanks to 4 fluids and something stronger than medicine, clarity. Vanessa rushed to my bedside first. "Oh my God, Mom, what happened? Why didn't you call someone?" "Call someone." "Ah." I looked at her steadily. "You unplugged the phone." Daniel's head turned toward her. Vanessa's eyes flickered. "Just for a second." "I didn't." "You took my charger." I continued calmly. "You removed the food. You locked the doors." Her voice sharpened. "That's ridiculous." Daniel stepped back, like he was seeing us both from a distance. "Vanessa," he said quietly, "did you lock the deadbolt from the outside?" She hesitated. 1 second too long. "It's for safety," she snapped. "You know the neighborhood isn't what it used to be." The officer standing in the corner of the room spoke up then. "Ma'am, deadbolting a residence from the outside while an elderly individual is inside without means of exit is not a safety measure. It's unlawful confinement." The word hit the room like a dropped glass. Unlawful. Vanessa's face drained of color. "Now here's the part one need you to understand. I could have softened it. I could have said maybe it was misunderstanding. I could have protected my son's marriage. But as I looked at Daniel's face, confused, hurt, finally waking up, I knew something. If I stayed quiet now, she would do worse next time. So I said it clearly. "I am pressing charges." Vanessa gasped. "You wouldn't." I met her eyes. "I already have." The silence that followed was heavy, final. Daniel sat down slowly in the chair beside my bed. He didn't defend her. He didn't argue. He just whispered, "Why?" And for the first time in years, I didn't answer gently. "You tell me." Vanessa's mask cracked then. The sweetness disappeared. "You've always hated me," she hissed. "You've always wanted Daniel to yourself." "Oh honey." Projection is loud when guilt is screaming. Daniel stood up. "That's enough." And that was the moment the power shifted. Not because I yelled. Not because I cried. But because I stopped shrinking. Vanessa left the hospital that day under questioning. Not arrested yet, but officially investigated. And Daniel? He drove me home himself. When we pulled into the driveway and he saw the broken door again, he didn't look angry anymore. He looked betrayed. But what Vanessa didn't know yet, what she hadn't even begun to imagine, was that I wasn't just pressing charges. I was preparing something far bigger. Because survival was only step 1. Accountability? That was step 2. I'll tell you how I made sure she could never, ever touch my home, or my life again. Not legally. Not financially. Not emotionally. When I walked back into my house after the hospital, I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I didn't whisper. How could she? No. I looked around slowly, took a deep breath, and said, "This ends now." The broken back door had been temporarily boarded up. The wood frame splintered where police forced it open. It looked wounded. Just like trust. Daniel stood behind me in the kitchen, hands in his pockets, eyes tired. "Mom, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied calmly. "You just have to listen." Vanessa was staying at a hotel that night. The officers had strongly suggested distance, while the investigation continued. Distance. She had tried to isolate me. Now she was the one isolated. Funny how life works. The next morning, before Daniel even woke up on the couch, I called a locksmith. Not a small fix. A full replacement. Every single lock in that house. Front door. Back door. Garage. Windows. Even the shed. When the locksmith arrived, he asked gently, "Ma'am, is there a specific concern?" "Yes," I said without blinking. "There is." He didn't ask more. By noon, Vanessa's keys were worthless. By 2 p.m., I had security cameras installed. Front porch. Backyard. Driveway. By 4 p.m., I had an appointment scheduled with an attorney. Now listen carefully, because this is where survival turns into strategy. You see, Vanessa didn't just want control over the house. She wanted control over everything. My finances. My will. My medical decisions. 2 years ago, after a minor surgery, Daniel had suggested setting up a limited power of attorney, just in case. I agreed. But Vanessa had insisted on organizing the paperwork afterward. At the time, I thought nothing of it. That was my second mistake. When I met with the attorney, Ms. Caroline Reeves, sharp-eyed and calm as winter air, I told her everything. She didn't interrupt. Didn't gasp. Didn't dramatize. She just said, "Let's review your documents." And that's when we found it. A clause added to the power of attorney. A financial access extension that I never approved. Never signed. But my signature was there. Copied. Traced. Forged. My stomach didn't drop. It hardened. Caroline looked at me and said, "Mrs. Whitaker, this is criminal." I nodded slowly. "I know. Forgery. Unlawful confinement. Elder neglect." Vanessa thought she was just manipulating a forgetful old woman. What she actually did. She built a legal case against herself. Daniel didn't know about the forged document yet. I chose to tell him myself. We sat at the dining table that evening. Same table where I once helped him with homework. I slid the paper across. "What is this?" he asked. "Look at the clause," I said quietly. He read it. His face drained of color. "I didn't add this." "I know," I said. He looked at my signature again. "Mom, did you?" "No." The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was devastating. Because now it wasn't just about locking me inside. It was about intent. Daniel leaned back in his chair like the air had been knocked out of him. "She planned this," he whispered. "Yes, she did." That night, Daniel went to the hotel to confront her. I didn't go. I didn't need to. I had already done my part. Later, he told me how it unfolded. At first, she denied everything. Then she blamed stress. Then she cried. Then she accused me of trying to tear the family apart. But when Daniel showed her the forged clause, she went silent. And silence, honey, is louder than excuses. He didn't scream. He didn't throw anything. He just said 5 words that changed everything. "I don't know you anymore." And he left. The next morning, I filed formal charges for document tampering. Not out of revenge. Out of protection. Because here's the truth I learned the hard way. When someone shows you they are willing to erase you slowly, believe them. But what Vanessa didn't realize. I wasn't done. Locks were changed. Papers were secured. Police reports were filed. But I had one more move left. And it wasn't about anger. It was about legacy. Because I'm going to tell you how I made sure that even if she ever tried to come back, she would leave with absolutely nothing. Not the house. Not the money. Not the story. Nothing. You know what hurts someone like Vanessa the most? It's not yelling. It's not drama. It's not public humiliation. It's paperwork. Clean. Final. Irreversible paperwork. And that's exactly what I prepared. 2 days after I met with my attorney, Ms. Caroline Reeves, I went back to her office with a clear head and steady hands. No checking. No tears. No second-guessing. She laid the documents out neatly across her desk. Mrs. Whitaker, she said gently, once these are signed, there's no undoing it without your consent. That's the point, I replied. Here's what we did. First, I revoked the old power of attorney completely. Not amended. Not edited. Revoked. Legally null and void. Second, I created a new living trust. Every asset I own, transferred into that trust. The house, my savings, my retirement accounts, even my late husband's watch collection. And guess who was not listed anywhere in it? Vanessa. Not as beneficiary. Not as executor. Not as secondary contact. Not even as emergency reference. But here's the part that made it airtight. I included a legal clause stating that anyone who contests the trust forfeits any potential inheritance. Which means if she ever tries to challenge it, she walks away with nothing automatically. Now that's what I call protection. Daniel came with me to the second meeting. He sat quietly while Caroline explained everything. When she finished, she looked at him and said, "This protects your mother from financial manipulation." He nodded slowly. Then he said something that broke my heart a little. I should have done this sooner. I reached over and squeezed his hand. You're doing it now, I told him. And that matters. Later that week, Vanessa tried to come back to the house. Oh yes. She showed up with sunglasses on like she was heading to brunch instead of facing consequences. She knocked hard. I didn't rush. I walked to the door calmly and opened it halfway. Behind me, the new security system blinked softly. Give me my key, she demanded. It doesn't work anymore, I said. Her jaw tightened. Daniel told me you're rewriting everything. That's insane. I'm his wife. I nodded. You are. And this is our house. I held her gaze steadily. No, it isn't. Silence. I could see her recalculating, searching for leverage. You're punishing me, she snapped. No, I said quietly. I'm protecting myself. She tried one last tactic. You think he's going to choose you over me? That question used to scare me. It doesn't anymore. I think, I said calmly, he's going to choose what's right. And I closed the door. Not slammed. Closed. Soft. Final. That night Daniel didn't go back to the hotel. He stayed in the guest room. We sat in the living room like we used to when he was a teenager. Quiet. Processing. Mom, he said finally. I've filed for separation. I didn't gasp. Didn't celebrate. I just nodded. Because here's something people don't talk about. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't destroying someone. It's stepping out of their control and letting the truth dismantle them. Vanessa had built her power on 3 things: isolation, doubt, control. And in 1 week, she lost all 3. But I wasn't finished yet. Because protecting my house was one thing. Protecting my dignity? That required one more move. And I'll tell you what happened in court. And what the judge said to her. That made her finally realize she had underestimated the wrong grandmother. You ever sit in a courtroom and feel completely calm, while the person who tried to destroy you can't stop shifting in their chair? That's power. Not loud power. Not angry power. Steady power. And that's exactly how I walked into that courtroom. Vanessa thought this would go away quietly. Maybe a warning. Maybe a fine. Maybe everyone would feel too embarrassed to push it further. She underestimated 2 things. The police report. And me. The charges filed weren't small. Unlawful confinement. Elder neglect. Forgery of legal documents. When I saw the official paperwork listing her name under defendant, I didn't feel joy. I felt clarity. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and tension. Vanessa sat beside her attorney, dressed in soft beige like innocence had a color palette. Daniel sat behind me. Not beside her. Behind me. That detail mattered. When the judge entered, the room stood. And suddenly, this wasn't family drama anymore. It was law. The prosecutor presented the timeline. Deadbolt locked from outside. A landline unplugged. No food left in the house. 3 days without access to help. Forced entry by police. Hospital records confirming dehydration. Forged clause on power of attorney. Each point landed like a brick. Vanessa's attorney tried the usual defense. It was a misunderstanding. She was acting out of concern. The defendant believed the plaintiff was safe. Safe. The judge raised an eyebrow. Safe, he repeated. Then he looked directly at Vanessa. Did you secure the residence from the outside? She hesitated. And in court, hesitation is loud. Yes, she admitted. Did you ensure access to communication? Silence. Did you provide sufficient food and supervision? Her voice cracked. I thought. That's not what I asked, the judge interrupted. The room went still. Then he said something I will never forget. Elderly individuals are not inconveniences to be managed. They are citizens protected under the law. Ah. You could feel the air shift. Vanessa's shoulders tightened. Her composure cracked. Because this wasn't about family feelings anymore. It was about accountability. Then came the forgery. The forensic document examiner testified that the ink and pen pressure on the added clause didn't match the original signature date. Vanessa's lawyer objected. Overruled. The judge looked at her again. Did you alter this document? She didn't answer. Because now? She couldn't cry her way out. She couldn't charm her way out. She couldn't twist it into confusion. Evidence doesn't respond to emotion. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly. I didn't tremble. I didn't dramatize. I simply told the truth. I have lived independently for decades. I did not give permission to be locked inside my home. I did not authorize any financial changes. I asked for respect. I received control instead. You could hear someone in the back row exhale. The judge nodded once. Then he delivered the decision. Vanessa was formally charged with elder endangerment and document tampering. Pending further proceedings, she was ordered. No contact with me. No access to my residence. No involvement in my finances. Mandatory supervision terms. And the investigation into the forgery would continue separately. Her face went pale. Because for the first time in her life, consequences were real. Outside the courtroom, she tried one last time. She stepped toward Daniel. You're really choosing her? He looked at her, not angry, not shouting, just disappointed. I'm choosing what's right. That was the moment. The moment she realized she didn't lose to me. She lost to truth. But here's what she still didn't know. Court was only the beginning. Because while she was fighting to avoid punishment, I was preparing something far more powerful than charges. Something that would ensure she never even thought about trying again. I'll tell you how I rebuilt my life, stronger, louder, and completely out of her reach. And how the boy next door became part of something none of us expected. You'd think after court, I would finally rest. No. Court gave me justice. But rebuilding? That gave me peace. And I wasn't going to just go back to normal. Normal was how I almost disappeared. The first thing I did after the no-contact order was issued, I sat in my living room alone. No tension in the air. No careful listening for footsteps. No wondering if my mail had been opened. Just quiet. Real quiet. And I realized something. For years, I had been living small inside my own house. Walking gently. Speaking carefully. Editing myself. That ends differently than it begins. So I made changes. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. I repainted the kitchen. Bright, warm yellow. Vanessa hated yellow. Said it was outdated. Well, guess what? Sunshine doesn't go out of style. I moved my dishes back exactly where I like them. I bought fresh groceries, real food, not scraps. I reinstalled the landline. And I bought myself a brand new phone. with emergency contacts pre-programmed. Prepared, not paranoid. Big difference. Now let me tell you about Ethan. The Henderson boy next door. 17 years old. Respectful. Quiet. The kind of kid who still says ma'am. 2 days after court, he knocked on my door. "Mrs. Whitaker, my dad said to check on you." I smiled. "Well, come in then." He stepped inside like he was entering sacred ground. I handed him a glass of lemonade and said, "You saved my life." He looked embarrassed. "I just called my dad." "No," I said gently. "You listened. That matters more than people realize." We started talking more after that. Not in some dramatic way. Just simple things. He mowed my lawn when Daniel was busy. I helped him with scholarship essays. He wants to study criminal justice. Funny, right? After everything. One afternoon he said, "I didn't know something like that could happen to someone strong like you." That word. Strong. I told him something I want you to hear too. Strength isn't about never being targeted. It's about refusing to stay silent. He nodded like he understood. And maybe he did. Daniel moved back home temporarily, while finalizing the separation. It wasn't easy for him. He looked 10 years older some days. But something else was there too. Clarity. One evening we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. He said quietly, "Mom, I kept thinking marriage meant loyalty at all costs." "And now?" I asked. He stared out at the street. "Now I think loyalty without truth is just fear." That's growth. Painful, expensive growth. But growth. The divorce proceedings started soon after. Vanessa tried to negotiate. Tried to claim emotional distress. Tried to suggest I manipulated Daniel. But here's the thing about patterns. Once they're exposed, they don't hide well. Her financial behavior came under review. Her text messages. Even her online searches about sedatives. Yes, they found those too. She wasn't just careless. She was calculating. And that realization did something to me. It removed the last bit of guilt I carried. Because sometimes, survivors feel guilty for fighting back. I don't anymore. The community found out, of course. Small towns always do. But instead of whispers, I received casseroles. Phone calls. Church members checking in. Not pity. Support. Mrs. Henderson hugged me one morning and said, "You did what many women never do." I asked her what that was. "Speak." But here's what Vanessa still doesn't understand. The legal case is moving forward. The divorce is nearly finalized. Her reputation? Already cracked. But my story? It's not about destroying her. It's about reclaiming myself. And I'm going to tell you about the final hearing. The one that decided her future. And the moment she finally realized. She didn't just lose control of me. She lost everything she tried to build on manipulation. You know what's heavier than fear? Finality. And the day of the final hearing, the air itself felt final. No more delays. No more excuses. No more misunderstandings. This was the last time Vanessa would stand in front of a judge and try to reshape reality. And this time, reality wasn't bending. The courthouse steps were cold that morning. Daniel walked beside me, steady and quiet. He didn't look confused anymore. He didn't look torn. He looked resolved. Inside the courtroom, Vanessa sat straighter than before. Less dramatic. Less confident. Because now she knew. This wasn't just about a bad decision. This was about a pattern that had been documented, verified, and exposed. The prosecution laid everything out cleanly. Police body cam footage of the forced entry. Hospital documentation confirming severe dehydration. The forensic handwriting report proving the power of attorney clause was altered. Digital records showing she searched phrases like, "how to control elderly parent legally," and locking someone in house consequences. When that last one was read aloud, a ripple moved through the room. Vanessa's lawyer objected again. But it didn't matter. Because intent? Intent had been proven. Then the judge spoke. He reviewed the charges slowly, methodically. Unlawful confinement of an elderly adult. Reckless endangerment. Document tampering with intent to gain financial control. Each phrase stripped away whatever image she had tried to maintain. He looked directly at her and said something that made even her attorney lower his eyes. Trust within a family is not a legal loophole. Ah, that line. It landed deep. The ruling came in clear terms. Vanessa would receive a criminal conviction for unlawful confinement, court-ordered probation with monitoring, mandatory counseling, permanent restraining order from me and my property, financial penalties tied to the forgery charge, and the altered power of attorney, declared void with formal notation of attempted fraud. She didn't cry this time. She didn't protest. She just sat there, small. And for the first time, I didn't see her as powerful. I saw her as what she truly was, desperate for control. Outside the courtroom, reporters were waiting. Not a media circus, but enough attention to make it real. Vanessa avoided cameras. Daniel didn't speak. And when someone asked me if I felt victorious, I answered honestly, I feel free. Because revenge isn't screaming in someone's face. Revenge is living well after they tried to shrink you. Later that afternoon, Daniel and I stopped by the house. The sunlight hit the porch just right. Ethan waved from next door. Life moving forward. Daniel turned to me and said quietly, "It's over." I looked at the front door. The new locks, the cameras, the fresh paint. "No," I said softly. "It's begun." Because here's what people don't tell you about surviving something like this. When the fear leaves, space opens. And that space, you get to fill it with whatever you choose. Peace, strength, purpose. Vanessa lost her marriage. She lost her legal standing. She lost the illusion she worked so hard to maintain. But I gained something she never had. Clarity. And I'm going to tell you about the unexpected call I received 3 weeks later. The one that made me realize this story was bigger than just my house. Much bigger. 3 weeks after the final hearing, when the house had finally grown quiet again, my phone rang. Not the landline. My new cell phone. The one I bought for myself. I almost didn't answer. These days, unknown numbers make you pause. But something told me to pick it up. "Mrs. Whitaker?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, speaking." "My name is Angela Ruiz. I'm an investigator with Adult Protective Services." "Ah. Now listen carefully. Because this is the moment I realized my story wasn't just about me anymore." Angela explained that my case had triggered a broader review. When law enforcement processed Vanessa's devices and financial records, they found something troubling. She had previously inquired about becoming a private caregiver for elderly individuals. She had filled out online forms, researched estate access procedures, even joined online forums discussing family asset transition strategies. Asset transition. That's a pretty phrase for control. Angela's voice stayed professional, but I could hear the weight in it. "Mrs. Whitaker, your report helped us flag potential risk behavior. We believe your testimony may prevent harm to someone else." I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. Prevent harm to someone else. You think you're fighting for survival. Turns out, you're building a warning sign. Later that week, Angela asked if I would be willing to share my experience at a community awareness seminar on elder protection. Public speaking? At my age? Life has a sense of humor. I said yes. Because silence almost cost me everything. And I refused to give it space again. The seminar was held at the local community center. Nothing fancy. Folding chairs. Coffee in styrofoam cups. A small microphone that squeaked if you held it wrong. But the room was full. Older couples. Widows. Retirees. Even a few adult children. Daniel sat in the back. Ethan came too. That meant more than he knows. When it was my turn, I walked to the front slowly, steady. I didn't dramatize. I didn't exaggerate. I simply told the truth. I was locked in my own home for 3 days by someone who smiled at my neighbors. You could feel the room tighten. I explained the signs I ignored. The paperwork I didn't double-check. The way control can disguise itself as help. I told them about the landline being unplugged. About the missing charger. About the food disappearing. And then I said something that made several people lower their heads. Abuse doesn't always arrive yelling. Sometimes it arrives organized. Ah, You could hear pens scribbling after that. After the seminar, 3 different women approached me privately. One said her son had suddenly asked about adding his name to her bank account. Another said her daughter had begun isolating her from friends. The third just cried. I thought I was overreacting, she whispered. I held her hand and said, "You're not." That's when it hit me. Vanessa thought she was silencing me. Instead, she amplified me. That night, Daniel said something I'll never forget. You didn't just survive, Mom. You turned it into protection for other people. Ah, that's legacy. Not money. Not property. Impact. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. 2 days after the seminar, I received another call. This one from Vanessa's attorney. And what he said? It wasn't an apology. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Because something new had surfaced. Something that could extend her consequences even further. And I'll tell you how this entire story truly ended. Not with revenge. Not with bitterness. But with a line I delivered face to face that ensured no one would ever mistake my kindness for weakness again. When Vanessa's attorney called me, his voice sounded different. Less polished. Less confident. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said carefully, "there's been a development. Now at my age, when someone says development, you don't panic. You listen." Apparently, during the extended investigation into the forgery, financial analysts discovered something else. Vanessa had attempted to open a line of credit using information connected to my trust documents. It hadn't gone through, but the attempt was logged, time-stamped, documented. Greed leaves fingerprints. Because of that attempt, her probation terms were being reviewed. Potential upgrade to supervised probation, with financial monitoring. More restrictions. More oversight. Her attorney wasn't calling to threaten. He was calling to negotiate. She would like to resolve any remaining matters privately, he said. Translation? She wanted this to stop spreading. She wanted quiet. I thought about that for a moment. For years, quiet protected her. Quiet almost destroyed me. No, I said calmly. I prefer everything documented. There was a long pause on the line. Understood, he replied. A week later, there was one final procedural meeting at the courthouse regarding updated probation terms. Not dramatic. Not a full trial. Just signatures and confirmations. But she was there. And so was I. When I stepped into that hallway and saw her standing near the window, she looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. Energetically. Control had been her oxygen. And she was running low. She asked her attorney for a moment alone with me. I agreed. Not because she deserved it. Because I did. We stood 10 feet apart. Neutral ground. Fluorescent lighting. No audience. She spoke first. You've ruined my life. There it was. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Ruined. I held her gaze steadily. No, I said. You made choices. Her jaw tightened. You turned Daniel against me. I told the truth, I replied. What he did with it was his decision. Silence stretched between us. Then she tried one last tactic. Soft voice. Controlled breathing. I was overwhelmed. I didn't think it would go this far. That's when I stepped a little closer. Not aggressive. Just present. And I didn't think you would lock me in my own house without food. Her eyes flickered. For a second I saw it. Regret? Maybe. Or maybe just realization. Because here's the truth. She never thought I would fight back. She thought I would stay polite. Grateful. Quiet. So I gave her something she'll remember for the rest of her life. I said. My kindness was never weakness. You just confused silence with permission. That one landed. Deep. The judge later approved the stricter probation terms. Extended supervision. Mandatory financial transparency. Permanent record. Daniel's divorce finalized 3 months later. Clean break. No shared assets. No lingering Thais. He moved into a small apartment downtown to start fresh. We still have Sunday dinners. Ethan left for college this fall. Criminal justice major. He hugged me before he left and said, "You changed how I see strength." I smiled. No, I told him. I showed you what it looks like when someone refuses to disappear. Now when I sit on my porch in the evenings, the house feels different. Not because the walls changed. Because I did. The locks are strong. The cameras are quiet. The paperwork is secure. But more importantly, so am I. Vanessa thought revenge would be dramatic, loud, destructive. But real revenge is living fully in the space someone tried to erase you from. It's speaking when they expected silence. It's rebuilding when they expected collapse. And it's looking them in the eye one last time. And meaning every word. If you've listened to my story this far, let me leave you with this. Check your documents. Trust your instincts. And never let anyone convince you that age makes you powerless. Because sometimes, the strongest person in the room is the grandmother who survived and decided to speak.